Good morning. Yes, I'm loud, sorry. But we are Telemetry Sports, and we are excited to showcase a new product today that is going to revolutionize the podcast industry. I'm Nate, and this is Chris, one of our developers. We are AI and data experts at contextualizing and distilling massive amounts of data for NFL and college football teams, and now we're excited to bring our expertise to you all, the fans.
Okay, so Nate and I have a great presentation ready for you today, but before we get started, I'd like to ask a quick question of the audience. How many of you, by show of hands, listen to sports podcasts? Okay, tons of people, great. Well, as podcast fans, you know how difficult it can be to find new and relevant content. And that's exactly why we're proud to introduce to you Sonar.
Some really good ones on Thursdays.
All right, he's better than a whole lot of
including this. As always,
Every sports podcast tells a story, but finding the ones that really matter to you, that's the challenge. With millions of sports podcasts out there and endless episodes, the noise can be deafening. But searching for what you need shouldn't feel impossible. Introducing Sonar, the AI-powered sports podcast listening experience that tailors content that matters most to you. By using advanced AI technology, Sonar allows you to search for a topic or theme and then instantly delivers premier and relevant content to you.
So maybe I'm a little too good of a time this offseason with the golf and this, and there are concerts, and it's like Mahomes and Kelsey are everywhere.
Inspired by the principles of data-driven insights to bring clarity to the world of podcast, Sonar ensures that you never miss the signal on your favorite topics. Uncover new voices to keep your content fresh and relevant for you. It's like having your own personal podcast editor, putting you in control of the conversation. Sonar, an AI-powered listening experience tailored for you, your interest, your time. Welcome to the conversation.
We all love podcasts, but there are some serious challenges facing the industry. The podcast industry has grown over 1,000% since 2018, and there are over 6.5 million podcasts right now. And while this explosion has been great for some in the industry, it has caused many incredible creators to get lost in a sea of voices and for a lot of fans to miss out on valuable content.
As Nate said, it's clear that the podcast industry is exploding, but the way people discover podcasts hasn't really changed. The number one way that people currently discover podcasts is through word of mouth. And we all know how that can end up going. The other day, I recommended to my mom a 3.5-hour podcast on semiconductors. She told me in no uncertain terms she would not be listening to a 3.5-hour podcast. This creates an environment where switching costs are high. Once a fan is invested in a podcast, switching to a new one feels like a high-cost decision. Creators are asking them to spend an hour of their time to see if they're even going to enjoy the content. There's no quick sampling in podcasts. Unlike music, where 30 seconds is enough to know if a song's for you, or with TV, where there's a trailer that can give you a pretty good idea of whether or not you're going to like it, there's no good way to jump into a 3-hour podcast. The best moments, the golden moments, are buried in hours of content, and creators are forced to promote their content off-platform on stuff like TikTok and YouTube Shorts. So we can sum up the two problems we see with the podcast industry as being search and discovery. We believe we've solved this problem with an integrated solution called a compilation. Now, what is a compilation? Like all generative AI, it starts with a prompt. You can type in something that you're interested in or want to learn about. The prompt is then semantically matched to topics within a number of episodes. The audio of those topics are then extracted and combined into one digestible compilation. So that made it sound reasonably simple, right? So how do we achieve this? Well, it all starts with RSS feeds. For those of you who don't know anything about RSS feeds, that's how podcasts distribute their content. If you've ever wondered why 20 different apps have the exact same content, it's due to RSS feeds. We take the audio and the metadata from the RSS feeds, and we put them into our own in-house AI transcription process. We then move into semantic indexing. Now, what do I mean by semantic indexing? Well, I mean we're looking at more than just the words in the podcast. We're looking at style, tone, voice, narrative flow. If somebody's being sarcastic, we want to capture that. If somebody's being ironic or making a joke, we want to make sure we preserve that content so creators are heard as they intended. Next, we go into our intelligent curation process, and this begins with the prompt. Your prompt is submitted, it's matched via vector search to relevant podcast topics, And then an AI agent organizes those topics in a way to create a narrative flow that's engaging. And then lastly, we have targeted compilations, which you saw on the previous slide.
Okay, so Chris just talked about the tech behind Sonar. Now you're going to see on the screen the app with a couple of pre-recorded demos. So Chris just touched on a user-inputted prompt, which then finds creators talking about that prompt and returns a compilation. So here you see the user inputting Josh Sweat's Super Bowl performance.
Let's dive in with a standout clip from Chris Sims Unbuttoned.
Man, and how dare we disrespect Josh Sweat a week from ago? How dare they put him on the banner? It's like they knew. They were like, he's about to show some people that he can kick some ass coming off the edge against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Some fresh takes from around the horn.
Bill Barnwell, your MVP yesterday.
Was Josh Sweat. No disrespect to
Now the
Jalen
app
Hurts.
goes on to the
Josh
next
Sweat was the
creator,
best player
again,
on the
talking about
field.
Josh Sweat's Super Bowl
2.5 of those
performance. This time, the
6
great Bill
sacks plus
Barnwell.
a pass rush
Now, once you
into
return
Joe
the
Tooney
compilation,
to
you can
force that
actually go
second
into the
interception just
topics
before
and
halftime.
pick out a topic you want to
because of that defensive line. And I don't know, maybe you single out like Josh Sweat. And he had, I think, a couple sacks. You know, maybe he's the one that you would have, like,
So
I almost
lastly,
would have
we
voted
go to
for
the
him over
People Report
Hurts,
podcast. Again,
and then just
talking
told
about
him,
Josh
hey,
Sweat's
I'm
Super
voting
Bowl
for you, and then will you...
For someone like say Josh
So,
Sweat, who had a
a
fantastic
user-inputted
game
prompt
last night,
isn't
right? I
the
mean, he
only way
was
to get to a
phenomenal in
compilation.
chasing Patrick Mahomes, getting a
The
couple
app
of
is
sacks,
also grabbing
really
what
kind
all
of
creators
added a little bit
across
more
the world
fuel
are
to
talking
his
about and creating
his free
trending
agent fire. He's going to make a lot
So
of
here you see
money
the trending
in
page
free
of this-
agents.
And now we go into a compilation.
Let's kick things off with a
about the
moment
Champions
from
League.
official UEFA Champions League podcast.
So like any audio platform that you use to listen to, we have some similar features. The ability
A
to
stunning
share
start
via
to the
text or
inaugural
link,
night of
save,
knockout
download
phase
for
playoff
offline
football.
adjust
It was
playback
another
rate,
Champions League
jump
classic
forward, jump
as
back.
Manchester City
We
and
also
Real
have the
Madrid
ability to
met
like
once
or
again.
dislike, which
The
then
holders
feeds our
snatching a
recommendation
first leg
engine
lead
for further
with virtually the
personalization for the
last
user.
kick of a
And then
5-goal
lastly,
thriller.
you can go into the
Paris
episode
Saint-Germain
info, see
and
the
Dortmund
creators that are
have
talking
one
within
foot
that
in the last
compilation and get a
16 after
transcription
wonderful
of what's
displays
being
away from home. And Juventus were also victorious.
So, because we've done all that hard work to create the compilation, there's a couple of additional features we want to show you. The first is the ability to go to an entire episode, right? So here you see on the Explore page the ability to go to shows, go to an entire episode. Within that entire episode, you can get topics within the episode.
Beautiful people, and welcome to
So the first one is the McAfee Show. If anybody's ever listened to him, you know he talks about a wide range of topics, right? So his post-Super Bowl show, he talked about 73 different topics. The first one you see is him talking about his good friend Aaron
It's amazing,
Rodgers.
and yesterday we celebrated the hell of your. Yeah, maybe say, hey, how you doing? Heard they said they don't want you.
Yeah.
Huh? Scoopage.
Major scoopage.
Major scoopage.
The next is
Aaron
Bradley
flew
Cooper
himself
on the McAfee Show talking about Lane
To
Johnson.
New Jersey.
The quick meeting, in and out. He's not going to be a Jet next year.
I gotta say, man, it was, and you know, Lane Johnson. I just
Right,
think
big
he's maybe
Eagles
the
fan,
best right
comes on
tackle to
for
ever play the
Super Bowl.
game.
And then
And
last
I love
is
everything
McAfee
about
talking
him. I love
about what
his
he
work.
calls Nick
I'm Eagles
Sirianni's
fans.
dog
We read them
mentality.
every single week.
So not
Whenever
only
we
can you
do
go to
our
entire
overreaction
episodes, you
tweets,
can
Eagles
also
gonna
go
win.
back in time.
Who's
So here's
pissed at Nick
Boston's
Sirianni? Eagles
beloved
fans.
Bill
It's
Simmons
like-
talking
and
about
then
the Patriots Super Bowl comeback in
TV shows
2017.
were like, yeah.
Diving in with a highlight from the Bill Simmons podcast.
Next question. Is that the greatest Boston win? For you? Of all of them?
I think so. I think so.
We figured that may fire up some of you Boston fans out there. So it's clear that the podcast industry is massive and it's growing, especially amongst young consumers. However, there are some gaps in the industry that we intend to fill with Sonar, namely the current limitations upon navigating to specific content, as well as the difficulties for fans to find fresh content in a timely manner. Our plan is to develop a great product that has a strong market fit. We plan to get users, gather feedback from those early adopters, and then implement that feedback to continue building a strong product. We are in active development. However, given the market that we're entering, we plan to use the following paths to generate revenue. The first being a freemium model with a low monthly subscription cost to consumers. Next being B2B partnerships and licensing agreements with organizations in the industry.
Nate did a great job of outlining what's next for the business, but real quick, I just want to talk a little bit about what's next for the product. So first things first, and it's the one I'm most excited about, and that's our product launch and user feedback. That's really just starting this weekend. We got on the App Store for the first time on Tuesday. So we're really excited to hear what you guys think. So far, the conversations have been amazing. Next, we want to expand our data set and move into more genres. Currently, we're just doing sports, but we want to move into more niche sports and outside of sports entirely. And then lastly, we want to enhance personalization and user experience. We believe that we are uniquely positioned within the podcast industry to offer extremely relevant recommendations because we know what you're listening to, not just who you're listening to.
So, as promised, here's a QR code to download the app. It's also available on the iOS App Store. We would love for everyone in this room to start using Sonar today and providing us with valuable feedback that will continue to build a great product. We appreciate your time today, and we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you.
I have a few quick questions. How long does your historical data go to? How many years?
Yes, so the farthest back that we go is 2018 right now. That's the oldest podcast we have. We're working our way backwards. Across our whole catalog, we're all the way back to 2021 already. The process, I didn't quite call this out on my slide. It's fully automated and it is very scalable.
Okay. And then who are the competitors in this space?
Yeah, so the competitors are traditional podcast platforms. You have Spotify, you have Apple Podcasts. You previously had Google Podcasts, but they rolled that into YouTube Music. And then there's an independent platform called Overcast, which is great. It's top 100 in the App Store, gets good reviews. None of them have really made this podcast discovery a central focus of their platform. And when you look at big players like Spotify, they're doing multiple things. They're trying to do music too, so they haven't really invested heavily in pushing new content. Their strategy's been more about creating exclusive deals with big names, huge creators, stuff like that.
Yeah, and the other point I'll make there is Notable LLM is another competitor. The big difference for us is we're going directly to the source, whereas they have the potential to have hallucinations using AI within their content.
I'm not sure this matters at all, but I was curious, do the content owners to some degree start to care that you're pushing consumers to just a portion of the content itself?
Yeah, so in the limited so far conversations we've had with creators, the feedback's been great. It's been, how do we get on this? Because they also are feeling the effects of getting kind of lost. If you're Pat McAfee, he talks about 70 different things, and personally I love Pat McAfee. I'm not particularly interested in the WWE, so that part is not engaging to me. But to somebody who's a fan of WWE, that might be all they want to listen to. And so far, they have to just hit that skip button to get to what they want to hear. That's tough for them. Something that you didn't see in our product demo though, is that we have a big keep listening button that will take you and jump you straight into the podcast, the source one. So we're really envisioning this as a way to drive users to new podcasts. We don't envision that people will primarily listen to compilations. We believe they'll use the compilations in order to find content and then go to the source.
Why do you believe that?
Well, the topics themselves are not enough. It's kind of jarring, right? They're good to get you started, but they always kind of leave you wanting more. And to be honest, in our initial data, I know that I said that we just got on the App Store on Tuesday, but we have done extensive tests. We see that people do jump to the actual source audio.
Yeah, and on that point, the podcast industry is growing, especially amongst the young consumers. For those of you that have kids out there, they like everything bite-sized. They're never going to jump into a 3-hour NBA game, podcast. They're always going to try it, and maybe they won't even move into the full thing, but they're always going to want a snippet of what they want to know, those young consumers that consume things even differently than we do.
I'll agree with you on that. I wrote down it's well-tuned for the TikTok generation, for sure. Search and discoverability is such a challenge across the plethora of entertainment. We deal with it ourselves just in finding, what show or TV show or movie you want to watch. Can you talk, you said I know you're brand new out there, but you've done some user testing. What have you changed in your product design and UX based off of that user testing that can give us some insights into how you're really tuning this for that generation?
Yeah, so when we first started, we didn't even have those AI voice over, we call them segues, to introduce the topic. And that was extremely jarring. People didn't like that at all. It didn't work out. So that's the number one where it's okay, here's what it is, here's what we're talking about today, and then actually presenting the content to them. So that's a big change we've made. The other thing is that people also, like, initially we didn't have those trends on there, that trending content, which I also think is really cool and unique because it's content first trends rather than just here's what people are listening to, it's here's what people are saying. And we kind of realized that a shocking number of people, like even putting in a prompt is too much work for them. You know, like coming up with a prompt is, for some people, a big ask. So, and they just want to be pushed stuff. So that's why we went with the trends. That's another big one that I think is especially geared to that younger generation.
On that point, not wanting to input a prompt, wanting to go to the same prompt over and over, but get new content on that. Think if you're a Green Bay Packers fan. Every week I want to click that Green Bay Packers prompt and hear new content, new creators talking about that prompt.
One more question. Does it get smarter about what I'm interested in? Like, I actually am on the opposite. I feel like what gets pushed is dumbified in terms of recommendations. And so talk about how it might personalize better.
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest thing is that we're looking at what you're listening to, like what is actually being said that is engaging to you, and we're able to match it to other things. And then on the other end of that, there's a semantic element. So you could type in like, you know, intelligent, and it will try and get you things that are at a higher register rather than, you know, a low register thing. You could type in funny takes on, you know, the Colts draft strategy or something, or, you know, there's all kinds of different things that you could do there.
Yeah, it also knows what you're not listening to and what you're skipping past.
One quick question. You said you're also transcribing this, correct?
Yeah.
Those portions in those compilations. How much transcribing do you do, and have you thought about localization just for other languages?
Yeah, so we have thought about localization. It's not currently on our roadmap. We really want to get on the English market right now. We do 100% of our transcription right now. So I think that slide said 3 billion words. That's several weeks old now because that's when we made this presentation. We're doing thousands upon thousands every single day currently. So we do a lot. We actually in-house that process, and we have a pretty unique transcription process that I think is more powerful. And we're doing it all on our own compute. One of the great things is we don't necessarily need super top-of-the-line compute for this. Like last year's model works for us. So yeah, very scalable in that aspect.
Appreciate the time.
Thank you.